Good day on all in this video, and today we have my Battle Pass Season 13 proposal. So as we all know, I obviously put out a poll and I said basically the Battle Passes these days are shit. And would you like to see me make one? Now, before I begin, there are a few things I must mention. Obviously, the important note there is relevant. Any images that you see in this video are not owned by me. I'm specifically stating that because you never know, something could happen, but I doubt it because a lot of it is fair use because it's on Google Images, but you know. Anyway, another important note. If you wish to use this for a Season 13 proposal on the War Thunder forums, please do feel free. However, yeah, just give me credit for it, and that's literally all I ask for. So, welcome to Battle Pass Season 13, Unlucky for Some. It took me a while to come up with that name, I'll be brutally honest. So, before I begin, if there's anything that is a bit out of place, like they're not evenly aligned, that's due to my dyspraxia. I can only apologise for that. But other than that, pretty much everything is in a presentable fashion, and I'm pretty certain that it's going to be understandable for many of you. So, what is the theme of my Battle Pass suggestion? Well, if the name didn't give it away, it would be quite obvious. It's going to be Halloween. So this Battle Pass season would end around Halloween time, and would not only be a good way to change things up a bit for the Halloween season, but they have plenty of decals and decorations that we've obviously had over the years. You can even bring some of them back, like, if you want to save time developing this, to be honest. And I've just picked out a few options here, like even a skin for the Po2 or something like that. But all I'll say is expect to see that Po2 a little bit later, because that's a specific Po2. But like I said, something like this could just be something where you could go, oh, we want to make this Season 13 a reality. It is obviously going to be a bit of short notice if Gaijin was to take this on board, and any time that it could save on like the decals and decorations could definitely make a difference in this regard. So I think this is a perfectly valid option, and obviously I don't think many older players are going to be butthurt about their decals not being as rare anymore, because half the time people do not use Halloween decals. But you get my point. Like there's plenty of opportunity for this, and personally, I think it's a good shout. So what would the decals and decorations be? Well, to put it simply, Friday the 13th, Halloween, and other related things like Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, etc. All of these things, and there are obviously some decals and even masks that you can use for like decorations, are all easily doable. And with the decals, as you can see down there with that Friday the 13th one, I think that's actually a War Thunder one. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember seeing a decal like that. But just something like this could be relatively easy to do, and not only that, there's still a lot of option. Like, you don't have to stick with Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, and Freddy Krueger. There's loads of them out there. You can even go in with Chucky or something like that. And it's just one of those things where you can just pretty much expand it how you want, and you can pretty much just design it how you want. But obviously, this is just me pretty much giving a suggestion and a proposal as to what I think should be in this. And if you don't include one of those three, I think you're doing something very wrong with a Halloween-themed Battle Pass. So, before we move on to the vehicles, we must go over the requirements. And these are quite strict if you're obviously new to this. So, the vehicles featured must be unique, something we haven't had before. If it's a tank, we can use the chassis, it just must be an entirely different vehicle in general. Like, it is, let's just say it's got to be unique to the point where we can go, we've never seen that before. The vehicles also must have been at least built once, not half-finished, not wooden mock-ups. One-off prototypes are acceptable. I'm not doing paper stuff for a battle pass. You can sod that. I'd rather have something where we can say, yes, it's been built at least once, even though it was a prototype and it was not battle tested, etc. Number 3. The vehicles must try to fit the theme. Now, I know obviously Halloween is a bit of a different theme to fit, but obviously there can be workarounds for that, which is what I've gone with. Um, and even if it's only a minor fitting of the theme, as you'll see with the tank, it still counts. And trust me, when you see the tank, you'll see why I was literally clutching at straws for it. But, it's just one of those things, really. And finally, rule number 4. Vehicles featured but will try to avoid most recent nations where possible, i.e. the free plane cannot be Swedish/Finnish, the boat must not be German, etc. This is pretty self-explanatory. I wanted to give a different variety of vehicles to the specific nations, and personally, I feel this is the best way forward for that. And as I'm saying at the bottom there, this is to ensure the new battle pass I'm proposing here is as unique as possible and brings back what we've wanted for ages from the battle passes: unique vehicles and a fun theme. One important note, because old Dead Man actually pointed this out because he got a bit confused: the Warbonds vehicles are not featured in these rules because that would just be stupid, and I'm not going to design or choose Warbond vehicles that are unique as well because, well, this just doesn't, like, it just can't work. Like, there's no making Warbond vehicles unique in this instance. So, we're moving on to the naval vehicle suggestion, which of course will be the first vehicle that you unlock in my proposed battle pass. The number 1 class auxiliary patrol boat. This is a Japanese vessel, and I propose a BR of 2.3 to 2.7, could even be 2.0 depending on how it does in a match. We'd have to see, of course. So I've chosen this specific boat, and obviously this image will be cropping up again later for an important reason, because you can just use a standard number 1 class auxiliary patrol boat. They seem to just be painted silver anyway. But I chose this specific one because obviously I was looking through Japanese vehicles because I figured boats, I should say, because obviously they kind of had it hard from the US. So I figured if there was going to be anything, it's probably going to be Japanese. So number 173 here actually had quite a hard life. The poor thing was sunk by a mine. It was refloated, so it came back from the dead, and then it was immediately scrapped after the war, from what I found. As I said, the vessel pretty much fits the theme because obviously we all know about zombies and stuff like that, and obviously things coming back as undead, and then obviously sent back to death and all that. And also, it's quite unique. We do not have this vessel in game, and it is quite a interesting one because, like I said, it does have a decent complement of crew and pretty okay weapon. I mean, 2.7 is probably going to be on the high side, so you could probably put it at 2.3, 2.0 as like a safety measure, but even so. And then coming on to the stats of the vehicle, it does 9 knots or 10.4 miles per hour or 16.7 kilometers an hour. It is crewed by 34 men and armed with 4 Type 96 25mm AA guns, which are pretty decent, a number of depth charges, and a early warning radar, which I think could be pretty useful in the low tier matches, because obviously this vehicle is quite vulnerable to obviously aircraft because of its larger size and not the most amount of anti-aircraft guns, but obviously the AA guns can shoot down towards lighter vessels as well. So I think this is probably going to be a pretty useful thing, and obviously the sonar's not going to be relevant, but if submarines come around, I think this could be a pretty good vehicle, and obviously it is something that does fit the theme, and, well, it's not a bad vehicle to choose. And that's why it is my naval vehicle suggestion. Moving on to the aircraft suggestion, which will be the free aircraft, is the XP-67 Moonbat. I'm proposing a BR 3.7 at a push. You could maybe put it at 4.0 if you need to, but it just depends. This is a US aircraft, and we haven't actually had a US aircraft in a while for the Battle Pass that isn't in another nation. So I chose the Moonbat for a few reasons, one being the exact reason I just mentioned. We haven't had a proper US aircraft that isn't in the Battle Pass, that isn't a copy and paste. So what I mean by that, the last US aircraft that they've really got was the F2G. It is obviously an aircraft that is quite special, this aircraft, the XP-67. And obviously we haven't had a US vehicle in the Battle Pass that is playing since to put it simply, the F2G. We haven't really had anything. Number 2, the aircraft does fit the theme because of, mainly due to the name, but also its design flaws. With bats obviously being associated with vampires, which are nocturnal and undead, which does make sense. And number 3, the aircraft had massive engine nacelle design flaws, which could actually kill the pilot operating, because it adds further into the horror of the theme, because from what I've read, the pilot would not even know if the engine was on fire or not, which they'd only know about it once they see flames licking out the nacelles, which is not exactly what you expect when a fuel tank could just be meters of feet away from that. So there is that, and well, yeah. Now, looking up this aircraft, there were a few armament proposals, but I've gone with a more fun one because let's be realistic. But going over the performance of the aircraft, its top speed is 405 miles per hour, which is 650 kilometers an hour at 25,000 feet, which is pretty respectable. The cruising speed is a bit lower than what you'd expect, but 270 miles per hour or 435 kilometers an hour. Seriously, it doesn't really matter. Its climb rate is a little bit low, so you'd give it an Interceptor's air spawn to help with that. And of course, the wing loading, power mass, etc. If you're interested in all that, I've left that there. And of course, the weaponry proposal. Like I say, there was a few that I found, and the main ones seem to be the 637mm cannons, and they would have 30-round magazines because it's the M4, not the M10 cannon. But of course, the only downside is they were never actually installed in a prototype, but I would imagine there is a blueprint somewhere to reference that. This could be a pretty fun aircraft for doing dailies of hunting bombers, because let's be realistic, if you're hitting with 137, they're already having a bad day. If you're hitting with 6, you're probably turning them into a pile of scrap with real shatter being fixed these days. And like I said, with the decent performance, the subpar climb rate, but of course Interceptor's air spawn, it could get up to hunt those bombers, shred those bombers, and then come down to help the team where necessary. I'm not sure about turn rate because those wings look a little bit small for my liking. That's just me. So I would imagine this thing would play a bit similar to a less maneuverable P-38, I would imagine, but we'd just have to see what it is in terms of its performance if we ever get this plane in the game, that is. And now we move on to the tank, which I know for a lot of people this is going to be quite a jump up, and you're probably going to be jumping in your chair or something. But this is the Russian Object 704. This is actually a vehicle you can see today in I think it's the Kubinka Tank Museum in Russia, which I'd love to go see this thing personally. So why the Object 704 of all the vehicles? And of course the proposed BR is around 6.3 to 6.7. You could probably bump it up higher due to the armour plating on the front alone, but we'll cover that shortly. Number 1, it's actually quite unique. So obviously the chassis we are familiar with, because I did mention the chassis near the beginning, but the vehicle itself is quite unique in the sense that it is. Number 2, from what I've seen on the forums, it is a vehicle that quite a lot of people have wanted in the game for some time now, with it being an upgrade to the ISU 152, which I adore the 152, but, well, does have its flaws, but not to Object 268 level, because the 268 has a better gun for that. And number 3, this is where this vehicle sort of fits the theme, and I seriously mean it at a push. The lack of a muzzle brake is actually more likely to cause recoil in the tank crew compartment, and obviously there's not a huge amount of room in there from what I've seen. And obviously with 5 men all clustered up inside of it, it's going to be quite tight in there. And if that gun recoils, it can either injure or kill a crew member, so whilst it only briefly fits the theme, trust me, it makes a lot more sense than anything else I've tried. Going over the dimensions and the overall statistics of the vehicle, we're at 47.3 tons with a 520 horsepower diesel engine with a top speed of 25 miles per hour. Now, this is where it's going to be a bit of a bitch to balance because of the cannon itself, which depends on if I hate you out of it. The 152 ML20SM 2-part ammunition howitzer. This is very similar to the gun on the ISU 152. You also get a coaxial 12.7 heavy machine gun, which is the Dishka. And of course, up there on the roof, you can blatantly see another Dishka, which will be for your anti-air duties, which, trust me, those Dishkas are not to be messed with in Ground RB. Then, of course, we come to the armour, which this is where you might even have to put this thing at 7.0 because of the armour. 120mm at 50 degrees, 120 on the top. The front bottom bit is 120/100. It's not accurate. I can't seem to find a measurement, so I've just put either or. It just doesn't seem to come up. at 55 degrees. The top side armor is 120 to 90 millimeters at 15 degrees, so most German guns should be able to crack that around that PR, and most Allied guns should be able to crack that. The side inwards angled bottom armor is pretty much IS-3, and the side hull, rear, and top are all IS-3. So, pretty familiar, but of course, with it being on a casemate and of course a 152mm gun, it is going to be a bit harder to obviously get this thing around because it is a bit heavy, but still, with this thing the way it is, it could be a pretty decent tank in terms of overall performance and everything. And whilst it obviously could potentially be moved to 7.0, the problem is with 8.0 tanks is the 152 may just not crack them. It may just have to rely on HE and cupolas and stuff like that in some situations. But of course, this gun does have access to a heat round, so maybe at a push, if you put it at 7.0, give it the heat round, and maybe that could do work. But obviously, you'd have to sort out overpressure a bit for that to work, really. So now we move on to the challenges for the season, and I've written all these, and it took the fucking piss, let's put it that way. Mostly because of the naming scheme and all that. So, over on the right-hand side, I'm sure I can hear Harry clapping his hands together like a little girl that's just got on their first pony or something like that. And you'll see on the right-hand side, 2.7 and above. What this means is I'm proposing we bring back the very first Battle Pass season's, shall we say, requirements to actually do the challenges. So what that was you played a vehicle at 2.7 and above, didn't matter the rank, you could play a rank 1 2.7 vehicle like the I-29, and you could still do your Battle Pass challenges. This is what I'm proposing. It makes it a lot easier for players to understand, makes it a lot easier for players to actually get their money's worth out the Battle Pass, and obviously with my proposal, people could very, very easily get this Battle Pass done, especially the inexperienced players, because most of these challenges are pretty forgiving, and I've even changed some of the requirements for them. And yeah, it is one way you could go. I'm pretty certain most people could do this. So we'll start out with the beginning, because, well, all these are going to be tying into like horror and stuff like that. Play a specified number of battles with destroying at least one enemy vehicle. 50 battles, 2.7 and above. Pretty simple, just get a kill, and you're done. Obviously, there will have to be an activity requirement for that one, probably 75%, like the one we currently have at the minute in our current Battle Pass, but I feel this is a pretty safe one to include. A spree of destruction. Destroy a specified number of enemy vehicles. 100 vehicles, 2.7 and above. Pretty fair. I actually took this one from 150. Well, I took the original challenge because I just copied and pasted the challenges that they were, renamed them and modified a few things. And this, on the one that I picked, was 150. I've dropped it to 100. Bit more forgiving that way. Next is Variety of Terror. Destroy a specified number of player vehicles using each type of vehicle. Tank, fighter, strike aircraft, coastal vessel. 7 vehicles each. Pretty easy, and of course, 2.7 and above, you should pretty much have this done in no time at all. A quieter approach. Destroy a specified number of player vehicles using an ammunition belt for stealth attack. Obviously, you're going to be shooting at someone, so it's not exactly quieter, but, you know. 25 vehicles, 2.7 and above. Pretty simple. Just take a belt, or a stealth belt, and just go farming. Pretty much as simple as that. An explosive entrance. Just drop a specified number of tons of bombs on enemy bases. 20 tons. That does not include the weight of the bomb. That includes the explosive mass, for anyone that is a bit confused about that. Fear across the globe. Play the specified number of missions on vehicles of the specified number of nations. 5 missions in each. 8 nations. Pretty much, we've had this one before. I like this one, and I figured Fear Across the Globe was a great name for it. Let the World Burn. Set fire to a specified number of player vehicles. 30 vehicles. A new toy. Receive a specified number of mission points where vehicles of the current season of Battle Pass were used. So you can use the XP67, the boat, and of course the Object 704 if you have it by this point. I can be anywhere. Receive a specified number of mission points in each of the following modes. Air battles, ground battles, and naval battles. 10,000 in each. Pretty simple. In the shadows, destroy required number of enemy vehicles using a tank destroy. You can even use the Object 704 for this at this point, but of course, 2.7 and above, it is your preference. 20 vehicles. Creating fear, plus play the specified number of battles while destroying at least three enemy vehicles in each battle. 15 battles, pretty easy. And then, of course, we move on to the challenges that you get as you go up the levels, which I wanted to try and reduce the difficulty of these as best I could. So the level 20 challenge is potentially deadly. Make a specified number of the critical hits. I don't know why I included the third there, but 100 critical hits. You have until the end of the season to do this. You should have this done in your sleep. Large tool hunting. Destroy a specified number of player vehicles using the ground vehicle armament with a caliber of at least 150mm, which is 30 vehicles. So you can just pretty much take out whatever you like with this and just have fun. The Hunter's End. Play required number of battles with the amount of enemy vehicles destroyed being no less than 5, so you'd probably have to do this in ground RB. 10 battles. And then, of course, Friends Till the End, which is actually a Chucky reference. And, of course, complete all season challenges. So now we move on to War Bonds. I hope that wasn't too much information to take in there, but of course, remember this is just a proposal, not an actual battle pass that is going to happen. So I picked a bunch of vehicles. I picked some stuff that people likely don't have and would love. And of course, I tried to include 2 of everything. So 2 tanks, 2 planes, and 2 boats. And like I said, all of these vehicles are pretty okay. I mean, the VSA is a bit of a push because obviously it's a mine layer. But all of these vehicles, I'm sure someone, will want a vehicle out of this. And even if not, my extra proposals for war bonds, which, as you can see there, ominously continued on next slide, is really where we get into it. But of course, the German T-34-747R is a very solid tank, and if this Battle Pass season became a thing, I would probably go for that first. Well, I would say that, but you'll see what's going to happen on the next slide, which is why that would be the second vehicle I go for. PT-174, pretty interesting looking vehicle in terms of its paint and all that. French PBY-5A Late, pretty nice vehicle to include here. You can have that as a cheap War Bonds vehicle. FW-190A5U14 for those that don't have it, because obviously it's a Focke-Wulf, and well, I know Harry would want that thing, so he can have it for free. The Sherman 1C Tresniak, which is the Polish Firefly, and I've sort of included this due to I had to throw in one reference to my childhood at some point in this proposal, and the Sherman Firefly from Call of Duty 3 is a perfect example of that. And of course the VS8, which is a German mine layer, because if I didn't include something that even Bertie could potentially go for, which is interesting, other than the T-34-747, he would probably complain that this battle pass isn't good. So now we move on to my additional War Bonds proposals. So those who paid attention to the first slides may remember this image of this Night Witch Poke 2. What I'm proposing here is a bit of a daft thing, and I don't think this would ever happen, but, I want to have a bit of, shall we say, creativity in this. What I'm proposing is we keep the flight model from the races, obviously tuned down, because it's a bit busted, and obviously RRB would have to be a bit different, and giving it PO2 bombs/rockets loadout as a special unique vehicle to honor this special Battle Pass season. Once it's gone from this season, it's gone forever. In order to get it, you'd have to hit level 58, which is shop rank 6 in the Warbond shop, and of course the Battle Pass season. You'd have to complete 15 special tasks by then, which you can do that pretty easily as time goes on. And of course, you have 2,500 Warbonds. If you miss this vehicle from this proposal, it's gone for good. So pick it up whilst you can. And over on the right, we have the old Battle Trophy vehicle box, which used to contain premiums. However, older War Thunder players will remember this, but I'm not proposing to bring this box back, because as much as I'd love it, because I do want to get my hands on an E7U2 and a CR32 Biz, I'm not proposing that. Instead, we bring back old removed vehicles such as the Gladiator Mark II-F, the Gladiator Mark II-S, Kai-10-2C, SM-79 Biz N for Germany, SM-79 Series 4 for Germany, Year-2 M105 TAT, Year-2 M105 RTAT, SB2M 103U, and SB2M 103 MV3. This would be 750 war bonds per box open, because, well, they're tech tree vehicles, and they aren't, well, they'd be put in the premium bit, because obviously they remove vehicles now, but this could just be a way to bring back some of these old vehicles, get them used again, get some love for them, and not only that, just add a bit more variety to people's hangars. Like, yeah, we do obviously have all these variants of aircraft in the game already. We already have plenty of SM-79s, we have enough Yurs, we have enough SP-2Ms, we have enough Gladiators, we have not enough Kai-10s, but that's not my point. The point is that we can just go, yes, we can do this, and this can, of course, be more fair. And I think doing it this way not only opens it up for newer players, but also older players, because then they can get the Pro 2 they want, which obviously would be a special one, and of course pick up some of these vehicles along the way as well. Other bits and bobs, the unique title would be the Nightmare on Gaijin Street, because I've got to make a joke here somewhere, haven't I? Referencing Nightmare on Elm Street. And I figured Nightmare on Gaijin Street or Nightmare on War Thunder Street would be, or Snail Street perhaps, would be quite an interesting one, and I figured that would be a quite funny one to include. So the image on the left, the far left with the Object 704, is actually from World of Tanks, and I absolutely love that skin for some reason. I just saw it and absolutely fell in love with it. Of course, you'd have to make some changes and things like that to obviously not copy, but, you know, something like that could just be really nice. The XB67 could then have a silver skin, because I think this plane in silver would look gorgeous, or like a jet black would look gorgeous. Depends on what they could really go for. The number 173 boat should be honoured with its skin. Of course, the decals on the side and everything. You could maybe give it a darker colour paint job as well. And of course, the unique profile picture, which I think, of course, could be changed, is a picture of Jason Voorhees holding his infamous machete. Additional bits and bobs, of course, we have the image of, well, this image on Google of a Object 704 without the disc on the roof. Gaijin have been done pretty well with their loading screens as of late, so I think this could be a great way to include a 704 as the opening screen and all that. Of course, it would not be a horror-themed battle pass without a machete as a 3D decoration. Of course, it can be one from, well, I nicked this one from the Friday the 13th game, I think I can't remember the name of it. But I just nicked the model from that and just put it there. And of course, a decal of Michael Myers. Who would not want that? And we now come to my last slide, which is additional notes. This proposal is unlikely to happen, as Gaijin likely already has Season 13 planned. However, it was absolutely fun making this. The research, the time, and overall development of this was really fun, and obviously as someone who's done games design as a college GCSE, or a college course, I should say, it was really fun, and it really helped go along, it really helped me go along with what I wanted to do here. As mentioned in the beginning, please do feel free to propose this on the forums, as long as this credit to this video is given. Let me know what you think in the comments below as well, and if there's anything you didn't like, let me know down below. I'd be very curious to know. And on that note, I'm going to leave you all to it for today. I really hope you enjoyed seeing this Battle Pass proposal. Of course, like I said, this is unlikely to happen, but it was fun making this, and I really wanted to do something that was special. Anyway, I'll leave you all to it for today, and I will see you all on the next one.